In a year which has seen considerable changes in the armed forces and government spending, even frontline bases such as RAF Leeming have not escaped unscathed, losing 23 squadron. But at the end of July, it is time to brush aside the worries of the world and prepare for North Yorkshire's premier air show at RAF Leeming. From humble beginnings, soon after RAF Leeming became a NATO UK air defence station, the annual air fair has grown into a major venue for aviation enthusiasts and families wanting a good day out. And it is RAF Leeming's chance to give something back to the local community's worthy causes, in the form of donations from money raised on the day to many charities, as well as the RAF Benevolent Fund. Mike McCann, one of the organisers, explains.
Sure. I'm the business manager, which entails looking after sponsorship, gathering money from any sources that can, because I'm sure you know that the whole thing's for charity. In consequence, we try to get everything for nothing, which is a classic ploy of any sort of charity organisation. So far, we've done very well. We've got some good sponsorship coming in from major companies. Do you want me to give the names? Or the Alliance in Leicester, Building Society, the Yorkshire Bank, Rover Cars. I'm trying to think who else. You've got to be very careful you don't miss anyone out when you're doing these things. We've changed the priority slightly. Normally, we would have a meeting of the Station Charities Committee after the event and discuss the various appeals from charities. But this time, for a number of reasons, we've gone and decided our charities based on the appeals we've had to date before the event. We've given out a percentage to named charity organisations. For example, Butterwick Hospice gets 10% of the take on the day. I think some other percentage. And there's a number of organisations, local charities such as the Northallerton Hospital, things like that, are all given individual sort of percentage-wise charities.
Have you enjoyed organising this year's event?
6.5 months, right since last.
Yes, so much so that I might even volunteer to do it again next year, but they're hopefully not making the same mistakes.
What's going to be new this year?
There's nothing specifically new other than the arena events have become a larger activity. We've got Russ Swift, a display stunt driver for Rover Cars, coming into the arena. There are bands. We've got a fashion show for the wives, which I think is a great, or some of the boys even may be quite interested in it. It's being run by one of the aircrew, the Lieutenant Andy French, and his wife Pauline. And it's being done using local talent, so to speak, and local companies that produce the clothing, etc., and shoes. So that's quite new.
When you're holding an air show like this, it must be very disruptive to the day-to-day running of the airbase. So how do you get around that?
For the most of the year, there's no major problem. We get on with it in our spare time, and we make time to sort of do the various discussions that go on. Closer to the day, it takes up a lot of time, but it doesn't. It's not an all-year problem. It's just closer to the day when you actually need bodies on the ground to, as we said earlier, to put the fencing up, things of that nature, and just to police the actual day itself. So the weekend becomes a working weekend.
What, for you, will be the highlight of the day?
For me, it's still going to be the Red Arrows every time. I mean, I worked with them for 3 years, and I watched them every day for 3 years, and every day I was amazed. Yeah, they're still so good.
Publicity is the name of the game. For without publicity, no one gets to know about the show. After a successful TV advertising campaign for the 1993 air show, it was felt that 1994 required a different approach, still utilising the TV and radio media to its full potential, and everyone having a bit of fun into the bargain. But to make sure things don't get out of hand, Station Commander Group Captain Phil Rosa, MBE, keeps a watchful eye over the proceedings. Tyne's weatherman Bob Johnson predicting a tornado over major sponsors Lightwater Valley at the end of March.
Ultimate fly past, as you'll see in a minute, publicising the Leeming Air Day right at the end of July. No tornadoes tonight, but it's going to get very...
The next bit of fun was when United buses were adorned with giant adverts for the air show, and a bit of a treat for one bus driver, being possibly the first man in charge of a double-decker bus to be scrambled out of a HASS shelter in living history. However, the ATC drew the line at him driving a tornado. Meanwhile, life goes on at Leeming. Not only with its own tornadoes, Leeming sees many visiting aircraft from other bases within NATO and the RAF, making life in the air traffic control tower very hectic. To get to know what happens in that ivory tower, affectionately referred to on the base as the Happy Eater, we spoke to Squadron Leader Tony Roberts.
340, on 6 on glide path, 5 miles. On 6
Okay, here at RAF Leeming we work out to a 40 nautical mile radius from the station, and our primary aim is to ensure that our tornado aircraft can depart and recover to the station in a safe environment. And in order to do that, we need to liaise very closely with the civilian and military aerodromes that are in the local area, which there are quite a number in the complex Vale of York airspace. We have Teesside, just very close, just up the road, Newcastle and Leeds, the main civilian airfields, and we also have Dishworth, Linton and Topcliffe, the military aerodromes in close proximity. In order to achieve this aim, we have 3 radar consoles that operate from the main radar approach room downstairs. 2 of the consoles are primarily involved with the safe recovery and departure of our tornado airplane, and the 3rd console deals with all the transits in the local airspace to make sure that the aircraft are safely separated from our tornadoes and from each other as they manoeuvre in and out of all the local aerodromes. Of course, air traffickers earn a lot of their keep when the weather becomes bad at an aerodrome and we need to recover the aircraft in poor weather. And most civilian aerodromes, they use the instrument landing system, which is a pilot-interpreted aid to make an approach to the airfield. However, in the Royal Air Force, we also use the precision approach radar, where individual controllers will actually talk down the aircraft to the end of the runway. And the pilot will look at his instruments and he'll follow the instructions from the controller, who will tell him to turn left or right to maintain the runway centre line, and he will tell him that he's maintaining the right angle of approach to get to the runway. Now, when both these events come together, the pilot will find himself actually touching the runway at exactly the same time as the controller says that he's over touchdown. And this is a superb way of getting the aircraft back when the pilot cannot actually see the runway for poor weather conditions.
How far out from the runway can you see?
The radar itself goes out to 15 miles, and we normally position the airplanes at about 10 miles finals. They need a nice long straight-in approach to the runway to set themselves up for a nice gentle approach, nice gentle glide path approach.
On glide path, 5 miles. Turn right 2 degrees, heading 340. On centre line, on glide path. 5 miles. On centre line, on glide path. 4.5 miles, check the air plunge. On centre line, on glide path. 4 miles, fixing 1 to land. Fixing 1, you've been cleared to land, circuit clear.
Tornadoes, from time to time, like most other aircraft and vehicles, get dirty with dust and grime. Reverse thrust often sprays the large tailplane with exhaust from the engines. So what do you do with a dirty aeroplane? You put it through a jet wash, of course. Sorry, the scriptwriter couldn't resist that one, but don't worry, he gets his comeuppance later. Washing a tornado is not an easy task, but there are reasons to keep the aircraft clean, other than just keeping up appearances. The squadron leader John Walsh explains.
The other reason for washing the aeroplane is purely for the benefits of the airframe itself, because as the mud, the filth, the grime sticks to the aeroplane, it tends to create chemical reactions, and that in turn can reduce the airframe life by such normal corrosion as you would with a car. So by cleaning the aeroplane, you get rid of that dirt and you prevent the corrosive process. In fact, normally after the wash, once you've done a wash, because you've got things like hydraulic components on the aeroplane, you then having washed the aeroplane, you then have to grease it back up again. Generally takes a day. Part of the reason for it taking a day is not necessarily the scrubbing and the activity that you see now, but there are various chemicals that you put onto the aeroplane that take time to eat into the grime, so that then later you can take the muck off that much easier. So in many respects it's a put the cleaning fluid on, and then it's a waiting process until the cleaning fluid is ready to be washed off.
Keeping the Tornado in tip-top service requires high-quality, precise maintenance, and the highly skilled technicians in AMF can strip a Tornado down to its component parts and virtually rebuild the aircraft from scratch. Flight Sergeant Steve Morgan explains what has to be done to keep Leeming's Tornadoes at constant readiness.
Okay, right, what you're actually looking at today in AMF is very typical of a working day. If you look around the hangar, there are 4 maintenance teams within the hangar, and they are all carrying out what we call planned scheduled maintenance on the aircraft. And all the technicians, which of course we have a complete coverage from airframes, propulsion, electrical and avionics, are actually carrying out activities on the aircraft right now, which you're looking at, and you're looking at a fairly typical variety of maintenance activities. The technicians that you're actually seeing working on the aircraft right now undergo specialized training to enable them to carry out their various maintenance activities on the aircraft. Not only are we carrying out our planned schedule maintenance, but we have an ongoing modification package on the aircraft, and there are special skills needed to embody these particular modifications. Everything has been designed to increase the performance of the aircraft, and also look very closely at the safety of the aircraft, as the main aim of any planned maintenance activity or any modification package or any engineering work is to, in the long term, improve the reliability and the safety of the aircraft.
As the final sorties are flown and the F-3s return to their hangars, frenzied preparations can now proceed for the air show. At the 1993 Air Fair, nearly all the visiting aircraft arrived on the day before the show. The 1994 show saw a much reduced concentration of arrivals, as many of the aircraft arrived up to 2 or 3 days prior to the show. But what few did arrive gave the assembled public a few thrills to savour and a good preview to the following day's events. Next to arrive was a jaguar, resembling a predatory insect in this view of it approaching to land. Seen here in the unusual livery of royal blue, the Shorts Tucano is a Brazilian-designed two-seat basic trainer that has replaced the Jet Provost in the RAF's training lineup. The superpowers of NATO aircraft, young and old, make an impressive sight on the Pan at Leeming. An impressive lineup of Tornadoes, the vanguard of the present-day RAF. The Twin Eagles insignia of 11 Squadron adorn the tailplane of what must surely be the zenith of all jet fighters, the English Electric Lightning. And its American counterpart, the McDonnell Douglas Phantom F4. The sophisticated lines of the F-18 contrast with that of the Harrier and Lightning, but each is matched for their respective tasks in the sky above. With almost tropical temperatures, the morning of July 30th was warm, sticky and humid. The Met Office had promised the early mist would clear in time for the air display. But even if the flying is threatened in any way, there is plenty of activity in the arena and surrounding areas. How about this for an aerial activity with a difference? Flight Lieutenant Nigel Rees gives us a rundown of what is in store.
I'm organising all the entertainments, whether they're in the arena or in the around the actual airfield. So it ranges from bungee jumping to Russ Swift, stunt driving and stunt motorcycles. What we wanted to do was publicise the air fair and get the maximum coverage on the press and radio that we could get. And Rover have got a record-breaking car that holds, I think, 37 world records for speed and distance. It's a standard 2-litre production car. It's I forget which actual model it is of the Rover. And it was put together basically the bid for the record by Rover personnel. And Russ came with that car and raced a Tornado down the runway. Unfortunately, on the day, it was very bad weather. Russ didn't have a lot of traction for the car, and I think he was beaten fairly and squarely within about 150 metres by the Tornado. We have Matt Coulter, the Kangaroo Kid, who's performing 2 30-minute shows for us. The first show he's going to do is his normal stunts that he jumps over cars, trucks, vans and the like, and the second show he's going to do for us is he's going to jump a Phantom aircraft, which will be a world first. Apparently no one has ever jumped a jet aircraft with a quad bike before, and Matt's going to do that for us. It's going to be about a 15-foot high jump. Probably he's going to have to reach about 20-30 feet to actually clear it in height, and it's about a 47-foot wingspan that he's got to clear. Matt holds several world records for quad bike jumping. He's got the distance record of 210 feet, which he made in 1992. Unfortunately, broke his leg at that attempt. We're hoping on Saturday that he's going to clear the Phantom with no problems whatsoever.
And so, with 12:30 rapidly approaching, the weather trying its hardest to clear, we hear the thunderous sound of 2 Tornado F3s armed to the teeth as they roll onto the runway and scramble, giving an explosive start to the 1994 Air Fair flying display. This F-27 Fokker Friendship of the Royal Netherlands Air Force needs a surprisingly short takeoff before it takes to the air. The white trails which underline the elegant lines of the aircraft are produced by injecting diesel oil into the hot exhausts. Designed and built in the late 1950s, the F-27's maneuverability might be considered more reminiscent of a single-seat jet rather than a twin-prop capable of carrying 40 passengers. A trail of red, white and blue across the sky marks the arrival of the Red Arrows. Not even the world's premier fast jet air display team can cope with a high-speed collision with a flock of pigeons. So, for one member of the team, the display is over before it has really begun. A close inspection also reveals a damaged wheel, the result of a hasty hop, skip and jump landing. But for the rest of the team, the show goes on, giving a hastily rearranged but faultless display of close formation, high-speed precision flying. Two GR7 Harriers of 20 Squadron arrive from RAF Wittering. We'll be seeing rather more of Flight Lieutenant Rob Lear and his GR7 later on. Flight Lieutenant Andy Cuban of 16 Squadron RAF Lossiemouth makes a high-speed, low-level pass in his Jaguar GR1. The Jaguar is a twin-engine tactical attack and reconnaissance aircraft and has been operational with the RAF since 1974.
So you see Flight Lieutenant Cuban touching down with a Jaguar, a little bit of a bounce there, but I'm quite sure you'll agree that was a very, very good display indeed. Holding the nose off there, as long as we can.
John Harper of the Flying Crusaders defies the imagination as well as gravity as he pushes his Express Extra 230 to its limits. Remember, don't try this at home. Flying like this can seriously damage your health. The British Aerospace Hawk is the RAF's advanced flying and weapons training aircraft, renowned for its agility, especially at low levels. As a weapons trainer, its role is to teach pilots destined for fast jet squadrons operational tactics, air-to-air and air-to-ground firing, air combat and low-level operating procedures. Watching Flight Lieutenant Dave Bentley of 74 Squadron RAF Valley give his display shows us why the Hawk is the aircraft chosen for the Red Arrows display team. The unmistakable outline of the Lancaster bomber heralds the arrival of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. The full operational crew of the Lancaster numbered 7, but today it is flown by just 4. Squadron leader Andy Tomalin and a crew of 3 from RAF Coningsby.
The Lancaster has been flown today by the officer commanding Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, Squadron leader Andy.
Who could fail to recognize perhaps the most famous fighter aircraft of all, the Spitfire? The Hawker Hurricane was Britain's first single-seat, low-wing monoplane fighter, coming into service with 111 Squadron at RAF Northolt in December 1937. A total of some 700 of these 2 fighters faced the Luftwaffe in August 1940 on the eve of the Battle of Britain. The Lancaster B-3 is 69.5 feet long, with a wingspan of 102 feet, and was the RAF's largest bomber of World War II. Its armament consists of 10 303 machine guns and carried a maximum bomb load of 18,000 pounds. From the north appears the mighty Nimrod, a long-range 4-turbofan-powered maritime patrol aircraft. The Nimrod's primary role is anti-submarine warfare. Carrying a wide variety of sensors and weapons makes the Nimrod suitable for many tasks, including shadowing and attacking hostile surface ships, and search and rescue in both peace and war. Today's example comes from 120 Squadron RAF Kinloss, and is flown by Squadron leader Chris Burks and a crew of 10. Making up for last year's disappointment when the winds were too high to jump, the RAF Falcons parachute team make their colourful appearance in the skies above Leeming.
But he's followed by the team leader, Flight Lieutenant Steve Sterling, Sergeant Mark Kroger, Sergeant Paul Asherwood, Sergeant Ken Pierce, Sergeant Andy Wright, well done, Flight Lieutenant Dave Davey, Sergeant Will Wilson, Sergeant Jed Robinson, and finally, Sergeant Colin Fowles on the target.
Serving today as transport for the Falcons team, the C-130 Hercules was designed by Lockheed as a medium-range tactical transport, able to work from short, unprepared airstrips. With a wingspan of over 132 feet, the C-130 is a giant of the sky and is regarded as the workhorse of the RAF. Flight Lieutenant Rob Lee makes his second appearance of the day in his Harrier GR7. The GR7 is the latest Mark of Harrier equipped with forward-looking infrared equipment, which when used with the pilot's night vision goggles gives it a night low-level, poor-weather capability. The amazing Harrier, with its unique vectored thrust capability, is a vertical, short takeoff and landing tactical strike and reconnaissance aircraft. A direct development of the piston-engined Provost, the Jet Provost entered RAF service in 1955 to provide pilots with all-through jet training right from the basic stage. The Mark T-3A, flown here by Eddie Todd of the Jet Provost Club, entered service in 1959. Our onboard cameraman got a little more than he bargained for, as he keeps one hand on his camera and the other on his sick bag.
but as a mount for initial training of navigators, giving them some experience of low level.
The Jaguar takes off and heads for home at RAF Leeming. The old flying machine company's first aircraft to take to the air today is the US Air Force's T-33 Silver Star, flown by Mark Hanna. The Harvard, built by North American Aviation, was originally called the AT-6 Texan and first flew in 1935. The Chance-Vought Corsair was designed in 1940 as a carrier-borne fighter bomber, entering service with the US Navy in 1942, and saw action in the Pacific during World War II. Coming from the same lineage as the Hurricane, the Hawker Fury was the last and most potent of Hawker's illustrious line of piston-engine fighters. Arguably the most beautiful fighter aircraft ever built, the Supermarine Spitfire was the fastest and most agile fighter of its day. Powered by a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, capable of 361 miles per hour, the Spitfire entered service with 19 Squadron at RAF Duxford in June 1938 and was armed with 8 .303 caliber machine guns. The North American F-86 Sabre-jet fighter first flew in 1947 and saw action in the Korean War. Originally powered by a Chevrolet-built General Electric engine, it reached Mach 0.9 in level flight and could exceed the speed of sound in a dive. This example flown here by Mark Hanna is the only flying in Europe today. Never having flown before, Denise Haygarth decided being strapped to the wing of a tiger moth would be an interesting way to spend her 40th birthday. And at the same time, she managed to raise a few pounds for the Butterwick Hospice appeal. Well, happy birthday, Denise. It's too late to change your mind now. Flown by Flight Lieutenant Ed Straw of 202 Squadron, RAF Bulmer, this Sea King Mark III is an all-weather day or night aircraft operating in the search and rescue role. Built by Westland, the helicopter has a range of 280 miles, a top speed of 125 knots, and can carry 18 passengers. Operationally, the aircraft carries a crew of 4, 2 pilots, a radar operator, and a winchman. The fallen Nat two-seat advanced jet trainer first flew in 1959, entering service with the RAF in 1961, replacing the de Havilland Vampire. With a top speed of 627 miles per hour and its agility in the air, the Nat was the Red Arrow's choice of aircraft before being superseded by the Hawk.
Would you please report to the Civil Police Control Hangar, Civil Police Control Point by number 1 hangar, where Missy is waiting for you. There's also contact care of these at the present.
The Tornado F3 of 56 Squadron RAF Coningsby takes to the skies for the last display of the day. High-speed passes and tight turns are the order of the day for pilot Flight Lieutenant Jerry Gotham and his navigator, Flight Lieutenant John Herbie Hancock.
come.
As crowds begin to disperse, they're unaware of the drama unfolding in the sky above them.
The odd problem to see and do. So if you want to stay a few minutes and watch departures, by all means, please do so.
The emergency services rush out as the pilot reports problems with locking the Tornado's nose wheel in preparation for landing.
All the staff here at Royal Air Force Leeming, thank you for a marvellous day.
The emergency catch wires strung across the runway in readiness. Fortunately, these measures are not needed, as the green light comes on and the F-3 lands safely. It's all in a day's work for the crews flying the RAF fast jets.